Welcome to Encounter Community Church. We are so excited to have you with us this morning. Just wanted to share about a few things that are happening. We are meeting once again in our parking lot. And again, the goal behind that is we want to make sure that we are practicing safe social distancing. So we would love to have you come out and join us for one of our services. We're actually going to be out there through the month of August in our parking lot. So grab a chair, bring an umbrella. We have some easy ups that are available as well. Make sure you put on sunscreen, but it should be a great time for us to do our services outdoors. Again, if you are uncomfortable with meeting and gathering as of yet, we totally understand. So we will continue to make our messages available for you to watch online. On July 8th, we have our mobile food bank. It goes from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. If you are someone who is in need of food, please feel free to come out and join us for that. If you know of someone who's in need of food, please let them know about our mobile food bank as well. And just to let you know, we do have food available for you. So if you are someone who is in need of food right now, please reach out and call us. Our phone number is right there on the screen. That way we can make sure that we get you food, or if you know of someone who is in need of food immediately, please reach out to us, call us, so that we can make sure that we take care of that need. If you want to stay connected here at Encounter, just with the events that are going on, just feel free to text at sign up ECC to 81010. The privacy of your information is really important to us, and so this is just a way for us to be able to interact with you, and you never have to give us your personal information before you're ready to do so. But it's a great way for you to know the things that are happening here at Encounter whenever we post new vlogs or podcasts or announce events. That way you'll get a text on your phone to let you know what's going on. But again, you never send us your information. It's just a way for us to be able to interact with you as well. And finally, if you wanted to follow along with the message today, just go ahead and point your phone, put your phone in camera mode, point your phone at the QR code that you see on the screen. A link will pop up. You can head over to that link. You can have the announcements that we've talked about today, as well as you can have the sermon notes. And the great thing about that is you can enter your own notes to the sermon notes. If there are things that you want to share with your friends because you love the point or love what it says, you also have the freedom to be able to do that as well. Again, thank you so much for joining us for our service this morning, and we will be getting started shortly. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I am so excited to have you here with us. And again, we appreciate you taking the time to enjoy this service. And our prayer is that this will be an encouragement to you, whether it be through the song, whether it be through the message, or whether it be through my smile. No matter what it may be, my prayer is that this is an encouragement to you. For those of you that call Encounter home and want to continue to support us financially, there are several ways that you can do that. One is that you can send a check to Encounter Community Church, 18749 Crenshaw Boulevard, Torrance, California, 90504. You'll be able to give that way. The other way that you can do it is via online giving. So you can go to encountercommunity.church, click the link that says online giving, and you can be able to give through that. And then also, you can do it via text. So what you do is enter an amount that you want to text to that number. And then what will happen is, if this is your first time doing it, you will get a form that you'll fill out. Again, it's not for us to be able to use that information to track you or track your information or anything like that. It's just a way to, for us, if you want tax credit, we can send you at the end of the year a record for your tax contribution that you can be able to use for your taxes. But again, I want to take this moment to say thank you so much. I am so honored to have you with us. And we, like I said before, we just pray that this is an encouraging time for you. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for this morning. We thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to come to know you, to be able to adore you, to be able to worship you. And Father, we just pray that your hand is upon this time. Father, as we look at how to be able to bridge the differences that may exist between others in such a way that it draws us and others to come to know you. I pray that your hand would be upon our time together. In all these things we ask in your name. Amen. Well, right now we're going to have a time of worship. Ariel's going to lead us in a song. As I said before, if you've watched this before, if this is your first time watching it, what's going to happen is the music is going to appear on the screen, and you'll be able to sing along with it. And it'll be an opportunity for you to just be able to just celebrate God and who he is. But like I said, thank you so much, and please enjoy this time of worship.
When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me, 'cause your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Now there's no stopping where you have started till it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. No, you won't give up on me, 'cause your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo in my soul. Holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out. Hey! And your love is holding on and it won't let go. Feel it breaking out like an echo. And your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo in my soul.
Thank you so much, Ariel, for giving us that opportunity just to be able to adore him. You know, that song, Echo, one of the reasons why I love it is because of this idea that God continues to echo his love to us for us to be able to come to know him. And here's my dream is that we will begin to echo that kind of love to others so that they will have the opportunity to be able to come to know him. Because that's the idea. Remember, an echo, 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 right? The echo reflects back what it is that you've heard. And so maybe, just maybe, when people see us, we can echo back the things that they see in God. That maybe when they hear us, we can echo back the things that we've heard from God and be able to encourage them and to draw them to come to know him and have that immediate relationship with him and who he is. I wanted to start today's message with the passage in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 14. It says this, haughtiness goes before destruction. Humility precedes honor. Spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. The human spirit can endure a sick body, but who can bear a crushed spirit? Who can bear a crushed spirit? So think about that. That statement is really powerful. Who can bear a crushed spirit? See, our words really are powerful. Our words can lift someone up. Our words can also tear someone down. That's why the Bible emphasizes this idea of humility. That's why this Bible emphasizes this idea of let's make it a point to watch what it is that we say. Because if we just start spewing things out without really listening, it can be our folly and it can be our shame. And then not only that, to also recognize, and this is the most important element, what good is it if we crushed someone's spirit to make a point? How have we worked to draw them to come to know Jesus in this way? You know, this was supposed to be the last week of this series that we're doing called The New Normal. But there have been some experiences that I've had this week. And then I came across this passage. Right now, I'm actually in the middle of writing my very first devotional. I'm really excited about it. It really is encouraging. It really is a challenge in many ways. But I'm working through the Gospel of John, and I'm in the process of writing it. And one day, you know, I'll release it to the church. I'll make it available on our website, and you can be a part of that too. And you can use it in your daily life to encourage you and support you as well. But in that, right now I'm in the middle of John chapter 4. And as I was working through it, I began to see how much it relates to the challenges that we're facing today. And so what I decided to do is I want to talk about John chapter 4, and we'll conclude this series, The New Normal, next week. And the reason why I quoted that verse, Proverbs 18, before, in talking about just our words and how powerful our words are, is it really led me to begin, I guess, to look at all these challenges that we're facing. If we look at the difference, there, right now in America, I think you would agree that there is so much division. So much division. Mask, not mask, right? Black, white. Black lives matter, all lives matter. There is so much division that is happening in our culture, in our country right now. What can we do to begin to bridge that gap? You know, as I was preparing for this, I thought about some examples of stories that really resonated with me, and I thought would resonate with what we're talking about. Because, you know, I used to do campus ministry at El Camino College, and there was this guy that walked over to me, and he said, "Ken, I just talked to some Wiccans." If you're not familiar with what Wicca is, it's like a form of witchcraft, but it's like good witchcraft kind of thing. That's the way that they kind of view it. However, this guy had talked to those girls, and he had said to them, whatever he said to them, he said, "Man, I showed them the gospel, but they just walked away. They just walked away. They just rejected the good news of Jesus Christ." And I said, "Well, tell me about the conversation." And he started telling me about the conversation. And as he's talking, I wanted to walk away. and and I said this, and I'll be honest, I probably should have worded this a little bit differently. But I said to them, I said this to them, I said, is it possible that maybe they walked away not because of the gospel, but because you're a jerk? It is. It's what I said. And like I said, I probably could have said that a little bit differently. I probably could have been a little bit nicer in my delivery. I was young. I was in my 20s at that point, and I just didn't know that. And maybe that's not a justification either, but that's what my response was. And then there's this other opportunity that I had to talk to this another person on another occasion, and he said to me, he said, "Ken, I've been persecuted for the gospel." I said, "What?" He says, "I've been persecuted for the gospel." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "I got fired from my job for sharing Jesus." And I said, "You did?" I said, "Really? You got fired for sharing Jesus?" And he said, "Yeah." And so he began to talk about his experience. And as I'm listening, I started thinking, and so I asked this question. I said, let me ask you a question. Were you sharing Jesus when you're supposed to be working? Like, if your boss had a task for you to accomplish and do, instead of accomplishing and doing that task, were you sharing Jesus at that point? And he said, "Well, yeah, God has called me to share the gospel." And I said to him, I don't think you were persecuted. I would have fired you because I didn't hire you to talk about Jesus. I hired you to do your job. Now, if you want to talk about Jesus on your coffee break, if you want to talk about Jesus during your lunch break, if you want to talk about Jesus during that time, but if you are taken away from your effectiveness to do your job to talk about Jesus, that's not an effective Christian witness. And now I take that and I look at today. And I look at just the voice of Christianity right now. I've had conversations with people, and there'll be people who will say, "Well, you know what? We are under attack as believers." Matter of fact, I read an op-ed article in the New York Times, and here's one of the things that it said that I thought was really interesting. It said, it quoted an article called "How Long Will I Be Allowed to Be a Christian?" And in the article, it said, "Christians and Christianity are mocked, belittled, smeared, and attacked." And I thought, well, wow, that's a pretty, and a lot of Christians do. They really do feel that way. But then it went on to say this in the article. It said this: "But a far bigger threat to the brand of Christianity comes, I think, from religious blowhards. For some young people, Christianity is associated less with love than with hate." So I was really motivated to do this message because I guess I started to take a look back. I took a step back, and I just started looking at, as Christians, what are we known for today? See, we're in the middle of the series called The New Normal. And here's what's going to happen. In the new normal, there will be challenges, there will be difficulties, there will be setbacks. But also in the new normal, there will be people who differ on what is best to be able to make it through the new normal. Now, here's the beauty of this. If we live the new normal correctly as we move into it, we can actually rebrand Christianity. Because there is a group of people who feel like, and when I say a group of people, I would say a majority of people have walked away from God, are not interested in God, simply because of the way that we as Christians have represented ourselves. So God has given us this golden ticket, like Willy Wonka and the golden ticket. He has given us this golden ticket to be able to rebrand Christianity, and I don't want us to miss it. I don't want us to miss it. So that's why we're doing this series or this message today, that we began to look at how do I deal with other people who have differing viewpoints than the one that I do, who believe differently than I believe, who live differently than I believe, or who live differently than I live. And here's the beauty of this is Jesus has given us an example. You know what the example is? Himself. Because there's this one point where Jesus was in Judea and he began to experience some challenges in Judea. So he decided to go back to Galilee. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting about that. Is there are two paths that you could take. You could take the roundabout path that would take you much longer. And there are some people who did that. And I'll talk about the reason in a second. Or you could take a path that takes you straight through. But in taking you straight through, it takes you to this area called Samaria. The people that would live there were called Samaritans. And on that path, Jesus has an encounter with someone who is polar opposite of who he is. And in that, he gives us an example of how we as believers can begin to respond and deal with those who are also polar opposites from ourselves. So it says this in John chapter 4, verse 9. It says, then the woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. So just to give you a quick background, at one point, Israel was a unified country. But then things happened where they became divided. So there was the northern country, which was Israel, and the southern country, which was Judah. And then later on, Israel is actually taken captive. Once it's taken captive, the Jews that were there began to intermarry with the people that were their captors. And so the Jews in Judea or in Judah began to look at them and thought they were half-breeds, that they had compromised the purity of the Jewish culture. And so now there became this divide between Jews and Samaritans. There became this divide between the two of them. And so when you see this, that's why she was shocked. Like, wait, Jesus, I'm a Samaritan. Do you realize that you speak to me? And that's why, remember I talked about that there's a long way that you could go to avoid this area? That's what the Jews would do, is they would go through Judea. They would go around to avoid Samaria, and then they would go into Cana or to Galilee. And so Jesus was on his way to Galilee. And so what happens is, instead of doing that, Jesus cuts straight through. He goes through Samaria. He hits a town called Sychar, and he has this encounter with this woman. So it says that. It also says, you are a Jew, she said to Jesus, you are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink? Because what happens is Jesus is sitting there and this woman shows up and he asks her for a drink of water. And she says, wait, I'm a Samaritan and also I'm a woman. Because again, back in biblical times, it was unfortunately, it was a time where women were not honored, a time where women were not recognized for who they are and who they could be. So what happens, and I just want to say a side note real quickly. Because there are people who believe that the Bible is anti-woman or anti-women. I want to challenge you. Read the story of Jesus Christ and dig into the culture of that time, and you will begin to see that there was no one who was a greater advocate for women than Jesus. Just go back. Look at the scriptures, and you'll see. Just look at his story. But that's why she was shocked as well. Men didn't approach women. Men didn't talk to women. They didn't. So we see polar opposites, Jewish, Samaritan, man, woman, and there's another way as well. See, in the passage before, when Jesus first interacts with this woman, it says that it's noon when this woman comes, and she's going to a well to draw water. So what happens is back in those times, women didn't go to the well at noontime. They would either go in the morning or they would go in the evening so they could avoid the heat of the day. So for this woman to go to the well at noon means that she probably had a bad reputation, that she was probably a woman that was a part of many water cooler conversations. And so for her to be there means she was trying to avoid everyone else. She didn't want to hear their mouths. She didn't want to be judged. She just wanted to go and get water. So now we see her being a polar opposite of Jesus in this way. Jewish, a Jew, Samaritan, a man, a woman, and someone who leads a less than reputable life compared to someone who is sinless and perfect. Polar opposites. And so again, I talked about some of those differences that we have today, right? Mask, not mask. Black lives matter, all lives matter. Whether we should open up everything right now or we should slow everything down and take our time with COVID-19. There are just so many differences. How do we navigate that together? It goes on and it says this in John chapter 4, verses 10 and 12. Jesus replied, "If only you knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water. But sir, you don't have a rope or bucket," she said, "and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water?" So what Jesus does, and here's what's really beautiful, and I love that Jesus does this. Do you know when Jesus is talking to farmers, he talks about sowing seeds, he talks about wheat, he talks about wheats and weeds and all those kinds. So he uses illustrations that farmers will recognize, that they will connect with. So now here is this woman, and she goes to a well to draw water. And what does he do? He connects this with a metaphor. It says, if you knew who you were asking, I would give you living water. And what is the idea of this living water? It means that once you drink this water, you will never be thirsty again. So this is what Jesus communicates to her, and this is what she said. And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor, Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed? How can you think that you are better than Jacob? So now, here's the thing, is this goes back to those differences. This goes back to what happens is she begins to say, well, wait a minute. What makes you think you're better? Because that's what the Jews felt. The Jews felt that they were better. Those who were judgmental felt that they were better than the Samaritans. And so in this aspect, this is what she begins to think that Jesus is saying, that you have better water to offer than Jacob, because that was their thing. What they were saying is, even though we may have intermarried, we are still just as connected to God as you are. We are still just as worthy of him as you are. Matter of fact, Jacob, when you read through the first part of the Bible, it says that he is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know this well, Jacob, this is in our area. We're connected to Jacob too. We are just as connected to him. We deserve that just as much as you do. So what she does is she chimes in on this difference because that has been their thing going back and forth. And isn't that interesting? So here it is that Jesus talks about this idea of living water. And what he does is he begins to give her a bigger vision of what can meet and satisfy her needs. And what she does is she pulls it back down to that which divides them. So here's the thing that we can learn from this as believers is we can begin to focus on, let's look at the bigger picture. Let's focus in on that and how we can use the bigger picture to draw us together, or we can buy into those differences. And when someone else points out the difference, we can point out the difference. And rather than trying to unite us and pull us together, we can allow ourselves to be pulled further and further apart. That's the challenge that we face with this as well. So later on, Jesus continues this conversation, and he goes back to this idea of living water, and all of a sudden, she gets it. She realizes, wait, living water? Wait, if I can have this living water, I wouldn't have to keep coming back to this well to drink. Then I would be all right. So she asked him, well, can you give me this living water? Where can I get this living water? Give it to me. And then here's what Jesus says to her, which is really interesting. He says in John chapter 14, 4, verses 16 through 18, "Go and get your husband," Jesus told her. "I don't have a husband," the woman replied. Jesus said, "You're right. You don't have a husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth." Oh, snap. Right? It feels like Jesus is calling her out to the mat. But here's the thing that's really interesting is for some reason, she doesn't see it that way. She doesn't see it as being judged in this moment. And so there had to be something in the way that Jesus, maybe how he said it, maybe the look on his face, but she didn't feel judged. And we'll see a passage later that shows that she didn't. But in the meantime, here's what Jesus did is he chimed in to the thirst that she had. See, there was a thirst that she kept going back to try to satisfy and fulfill. And that thirst took her from one man to the next man, to the next man, to the next man, to the next man. So now you can see the reputation that she had and why she was going to the well at noon. And also, now you can see why she was so surprised that Jesus would talk to her. Because a woman like that, odds are the men would try to avoid talking with her because they didn't want to be seen as one of those men. So she was probably shocked by that as well. Like, wait, you are talking to me? But what Jesus does is he identifies her greatest need. Now, there is a difference between us and Jesus in that he's God and we're not. But here's what we can learn from this. Instead of trying to demand our rights, instead of trying to hold our ground, instead of trying to prove our point, what we can do is instead of being judgmental, what we can do is begin to ask questions. What we can do is to begin to get to this place where we are able to identify what's your need, what's holding you back, what's keeping you from being connected, what is your challenge. We can begin to identify that. And just imagine that. Now, when we begin to identify the need, now we can begin to speak into that need. And how loving would that be? How loving would that? Here is an example of what that might look like. I walk into your store and you say to me, "Please put on a mask." I have 2 choices. And here's what I want to challenge you to do is I want you to begin to look at this encounter that you may have with that other person from an eternal perspective. I walk into your store, you tell me to put on a mask. I ain't putting on a mask. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to put on, and then I argue with you about whether I put on a mask or not, right? And then I get mad and I go home and I write a Yelp review of you, a bad Yelp review that threatens your business, that threatens your livelihood. And then months later, churches open up. And I have this friend who I've been even better. One of the co-workers in our store invites me to come to church with them. And I decide to go. And I'm at church with them. And I sit down. And I look up and the choir comes out. And the choir starts singing and and I'm thinking, wow, this music's, and then I see your face. And I think, wait, that's the woman who refused, or that's the man who refused to wear the mask. That's the one who wrote that Yelp review. That's the one who potentially ruined my livelihood. I'm never coming back to this church again. Could happen. Or I walk into your store and you ask me to put the mask on. Hey, do you have an extra mask I could put on? I'll happily put one on for you. Or I pull my mask out of my pocket and I put it on. Because maybe you're asking me to put the mask on because the law requires you to do so that you can be open. Maybe you're asking me to put my mask on because you have someone who works for you, or maybe even you yourself are at risk. But you have to have your store open, and because you need to pay your rent of your business, of your home. So you open the store so that you can be able to take care of your livelihood. And now you come to church and you see me in the choir. And then you recognize that's the guy or that's the woman. Man, they were so kind, so respectful. Even if they didn't agree with putting a mask on, they did it to honor me. Man, I'll check this church out again. See, we must learn to look at someone and look beyond the surface stuff to see their deepest need. Why is it? Why is it they're asking? Why are they asking for racial reconciliation? Maybe meet that need. Why are they holding on to this idea that all lives matter? Maybe there's something deeper than that. Maybe, and instead of arguing the surface level stuff, maybe we can begin to dig underneath it to find out what the need is. And rather than proving my point, I speak to the need. And that begins to open the door for healing and renewal and restoration. And we can begin to see change happen in that way. It goes on to say this. In John chapter 4, verse 19, "Sir," the woman said, "you must be a prophet. You just revealed my life to me. How would you know that? You must be a prophet. So tell me, why is it that you..." So you would think, "Sir, you must be a prophet." Like, wow, help me to understand my deepest need, right? You would think that it would go that way. You know what she does? She goes back to what divides them again. So tell me this. Why is it that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place of worship, while the Samaritans claim it is here at Mount Gerizim, where our ancestors worshipped? Jesus replied, and I love this. So she goes back to this place of division once again. And you know what Jesus does? I should say place of division, right? You know what Jesus does? Is he brings it all back together in unity. Again, rather than focusing on what divides, he focuses on the big picture that brings it back together as a whole. "Believe me, dear woman," Jesus replied, "the time is coming when it is no longer a matter of whether you worship the Father on this mountain or in Jerusalem." And I love this. It goes on to say in verse 23, "But the time is coming. Indeed, it is here now. It is here now when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. The Father is looking for those who will worship him that way." So, in other words, you know what she does? Is she brings it here, and Jesus brings it back here. And he says, the mountain is not important. That which divides us is not important. You know what God is looking for? God is looking for people who love him with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, who recognize he is the source of life, and they worship him with their spirit. In their spirit, they worship him because they recognize who he is. And they also worship him in truth. God, you are who you are, and I worship you because of that. That's what really matters. So what, again, he does is he takes this dividing factor and he brings it back together. And so, again, I want to challenge us to continue to persevere in that way, that no matter what divisive words are spoken against us, that we continue to communicate with words that renew, that heal, that brings us together once again. And it goes on and it says, "The woman said, I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus told her, "I am the Messiah. I am the Messiah." And she's like, "No, you're not." No, that's not what she said. You know what it says then? "The woman left her water jar beside the well." The very reason why she was coming to draw water, she now leaves it. Maybe there's some symbolism there. Maybe her thirst has been satisfied. And now she no longer needs the well because her deepest need has been spoken into. And then it goes on and it says, and she runs back to the village telling everyone, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah? So the people came streaming from the village to see him. Came streaming from the village to see him. Like, if he told her everything she ever did, he's got some things to say. So they come running. So here's the thing that's really interesting. She goes to the well in her shame. She goes to the well in her guilt. She goes to the well to avoid the naysayers. But because her thirst is met, now she runs to the town to bring the others to Jesus for them to come to know him. So this voice of love, this voice of understanding need, this voice of unity, this voice of vision that spoke into her, led her to draw others to come to know him as well. That should be who we are as believers, and the way that we communicate is that we do it in such a way that people will say there's something different about the way the Christians communicate. There's something different about the way they talk. There's something different. And as a result of that, I want to lead others to maybe begin to experience that, to begin to know him, to begin to see the things that unite us, the things that bring us together, the things that give us bigger vision for our life, the way that Jesus satisfies our deeper needs. Just imagine if that is our language. Just imagine if that is our behavior. How much would that really bring about change in this world? I want to read this very last statement I love is this. And it says this in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 23. I'm just going to read it to you. I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in his blessings. See, before he says, to the Jew I became like one. To the one who was not under the law, I became like one not under the law. In other words, he says, I try to connect with people wherever they are. Not so far that I compromise my relationship with Jesus Christ and I compromise the life that I'm supposed to live, but I make a commitment to meet people where they are. Now, I want to say this. Many of you that are still watching this, I'm talking to the choir. But I want to encourage you because it seems like the loudest voice in Christianity that's being heard right now is one that's divisive. And we need to change that. So if you agree with this message today, then I want to challenge you to step into the life of those who are around you and begin to serve them and love them. And when the opportunity presents itself, that you can begin to speak truth into their life, speak love into their life, speak healing and forgiveness into their life. And who knows that maybe as a result of us living this way, it'll draw others to come to know him. Father, I thank you for this message. I thank you for this morning. And I pray that you will continue to use this to speak to us. Continue to use this to draw others to come to know you. Continue to use this to soften our hearts. Continue to use this to rebuild our lives in such a way, Father, that when people hear us, they don't hear the divisive voice, but they hear one of love, of concern, of healing, of renewal. Lord, I pray that's our voice. I pray that's our voice. I just want to encourage you. Subscribe so that you can continue to get, when we post new messages, that you can get those. When we post new vlogs, you can get those, as well as follow us on Facebook if you're watching on that. That way, when we have new things that are happening at the church, you're one of the first ones to be able to know about it. And again, thank you so much for being with me today. And like I said, I really do hope that this message really inspires you, really challenges you to begin to step out and say, how can I help others to come to know him by being that example of love, of compassion, of forgiveness? Because again, remember, encounter is about three things: love up, love out, love in. In other words, love up, that we are madly and passionately in love with God. And the way that that shows is loving out. And it shows by the way that we treat our fellow man. And then love in, that we make the commitment to take care of ourselves, growing, developing, pursuing, and becoming the best us that we ultimately can be. So again, thank you. And just a quick reminder, if you missed the announcements before, they'll replay after this. But take care, God bless you, and hope to see you next week as we finish out this series. Welcome to Encounter Community Church. We are so excited to have you with us this morning. Just wanted to share about a few things that are happening. We are meeting once again in our parking lot. And again, the goal behind that is we want to make sure that we are practicing safe social distancing. So we would love to have you come out and join us for one of our services. We're actually going to be out there through the month of August in our parking lot. So grab a chair, bring an umbrella. We have some easy ups that are available as well. Make sure you put on sunscreen. But it should be a great time for us to do our services outdoors. Again, if you are uncomfortable with meeting and gathering as of yet, we totally understand. So we will continue to make our messages available for you to watch online. On July 8th, we have our mobile food bank. It goes from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. If you are someone who is in need of food, please feel free to come out and join us for that. If you know of someone who's in need of food, please let them know about our mobile food bank as well. And just to let you know, we do have food available for you. So if you are someone who is in need of food right now, please reach out and call us. Our phone number is right there on the screen. That way we can make sure that we get you food. Or if you know of someone who is in need of food immediately, please reach out to us, call us, so that we can make sure that we take care of that need. If you want to stay connected here at Encounter, just with the events that are going on, just feel free to text at sign up ECC to 81010. The privacy of your information is really important to us, and so this is just a way for us to be able to interact with you, and you never have to give us your personal information before you're ready to do so. But it's a great way for you to know the things that are happening here at Encounter whenever we post new vlogs or podcasts or announce events. That way you'll get a text on your phone to let you know what's going on. But again, you never send us your information. It's just a way for us to be able to interact with you as well. And finally, if you wanted to follow along with the message today, just go ahead and put your phone in camera mode, point your phone at the QR code that you see on the screen. A link will pop up. You can head over to that link. You can have the announcements that we've talked about today, as well as you can have the sermon notes. And the great thing about that is you can enter your own notes to the sermon notes. If there are things that you want to share with your friends because you love the point or love what it says, you also have the freedom to be able to do that as well. Again, thank you so much for joining us for our service this morning, and we will be getting started shortly.